Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Let's take a quick look once more at Bitcoin. Boy, it's not slowing down anytime soon, it looks like here. We are rejecting tentatively, or had rejected off of our weekly high close. So just keep that in mind. We've still have yet to close above 104.5 as a close approximate. So we'll keep our eyes on that and kind of see what's going on. We're going to check some back-end liquidation data here too, and just kind of see where we're at. If you could please hit that like button, comment below, let me know what your position is on Bitcoin. You long or you're short, or are you just pretty much just buying every single dip for your spot bag? When it comes to liquidation, there's not a whole heck of a lot left above the price. We're starting to see a little bit in the local area, about 104 to 107, but these are kind of a little bit on the sparse side here. All the heavy concentrations liquidation is pretty much gone, you can kind of see here. So it does make sense that we're going to see a slight pullback potential. Now, are we going to come down super hard or super fast? Maybe not. I mean, this seems fairly sustainable. There's a ton of volume. We're going to look at that here too. But it also seems logical that 97 to 100,000 would be a next key level of support based on, well, psychological resistance, turn support, but also 97,000 has that massive point of control. Speaking of massive, we're now at 35 billion in liquidation long delta. So we have $35 billion more in long liquidation that could occur versus that of shorts. Not to say there aren't any shorts here, it just implies there's way more longs than shorts. So generally tells us that you probably don't want to short against this. Now that comes with a caveat though. Today's Friday. We've seen like, I think 90% of weekends this year have been red. So I'll provide that statistic a little bit later, maybe on my Twitter, Telegram, or Discord, but the key takeaway here, liquidation delta is strong. You don't really want to short against that, but I do think that today being a Friday, we're probably going to see some profits being taken this weekend. We'll have to pay attention to CME gaps as well if that's a possible reality for us. But either way, this is super bullish, generally a positive, sustainable sign when you see that much liquidation. We look here at open interest, once more, 95,000, just that bright shining star. So tremendous amount of purchasing power at the 95K range. Having said that, let's quickly look at the daily time frame, see where we're at. Let's touch on the weekly first of all. Just so you understand what WHC stands for, weekly high close, or that's the term I use. I'm not sure that's exactly in the terminology there specifically, but candlestick closures to me are important because they kind of represent how well or poorly the coin did at that in that week, right? Or just where the key levels are. So we saw pretty significant resistance at 104.6 specifically, and again today we wicked up to that 104.6 level. So it's not to say we can't still continue higher. It just kind of implies that we're probably going to see some selling pressure in that range because that's effectively an area in which people want to exit their position. So that's kind of just something to kind of recognize. This local liquidation has been fully swept. So there's not a tremendous amount of liquidation left, but from a weekly perspective, things are looking fantastic here. We're converging on the MACD, stochastic swinging up. So, I mean, if you're going to consider any kind of shorts soon, just make sure that they're tighter and you're working within smaller margins. Because this fair value gap here, as low as 97,000, could get filled. I mean, that was a pretty significant candle in one day. Bitcoin moved about 7% from bottom to top. We haven't seen that kind of correction in a while. And truth is, if you look back here, previous fair value gaps haven't even gotten filled yet. So it's not a guarantee we're just going to pull back. But I do think the odds of it being are higher considering we're leading into a weekend. But once more, there have been times in the past where we've seen like these euphoric type of feelings going into weekends, and it continues too. So people will continue to pump the price action. So it may be smart to wait until tomorrow to short versus trying to short today, based on the simple fact that we'll see that little people are getting paid today. They're trying to get in before it's too late. They're all emotional, and it's going to cause potential problems for some people. But once more, just to reiterate, point of control, 97,000, $100,000, that psychological resistance or support. So 97 to 100K is where my money's at there as far as a good consideration for long, if we even see that, or just a take profit target for a short. Okay, so just be mindful of that. Now, when we take a look here at the 4 hour, we're going to just kind of quickly look at volume because that's an important factor. We can see volume is sustaining itself decently, but it's tapering off a little bit. We'll look on the hourly to confirm that, but all moving averages, RSIs, everything looks pretty strong here. And the truth is our RSI is coming down back to the 70 level. So oftentimes when it crosses over, that's a good consideration to secure profits on a long position because that euphoric state is starting to dissipate, right? So it's starting to come back to normal, and we're no longer in the stratosphere or the moon hemisphere. I'm sure a bunch of moon boys are having a great time right now. And then we're pulling back here, kind of just the reality is setting in that, okay, we are overextended. Profits need to be taken. The price is going to pull back. It's not going to pull back super substantial, folks, I don't think, but I do feel like, you know, that 100 to 101K range, it seems practical at this point, just based on the simple fact that we're starting, you know, all the indicators are starting to relax. We've been in this range for a while. We actually got this volume range percentile alert. Typically when this occurs, you will see the price action retrace shortly after. Like, for example, we saw this over here and the price went sideways and up. So it's not a guarantee by any stretch, but most of the time when you get that price moving average range percentile, it does have a tendency of giving an indication that things are massively overextended, okay? Now, speaking of overextension, let's look at the hourly and quickly confirm here. We take a look at TDS. We had 1, 2, 3 overextensions. So we had 3 9-hour continuations with small amount of retracement. So it does imply that we are due for a pullback, at least, you know, a moderate one. And if we take a look here, of course, at the RSIs and the hourly, things are coming back down to reality. The whole point of me pulling this up is to look at the volume. So if we look at the volume here, we can kind of recognize that we are seeing spikes in volume. This is a very strong red candle here in the last hour, kind of implying that the price action closed lower than it was higher. So usually when you have a high volume candle in a range like this at resistance, which we can see 103.6 is that local resistance, the likelihood of further downside is greater because it didn't essentially break out of its ascending trend. Okay, so we actually saw a breakdown. So what we probably will see here soon, depending on, of course, this is small time frame stuff that can change quickly. But usually when I'm day trading, these are things I look for. The price comes back up to that point of control and rejects out. So I would say 103,000 would be a solid consideration for a short, very tentatively. And if you're going to consider a take profit target, don't get super greedy, folks. I don't think we're going to, you know, anything in the low low 90K range. I think that's pretty much unpractical right now. I would say 95K is absolute best case scenario, but 97 to 100,000 seems more sensible. Okay, so I just be very careful. Make sure you're securing profits when you can. If you're taking a short, then just know that it does come with inherent risks, just like longs do too. Though honestly, right now at this point, I don't necessarily recommend longing. Oh man, it's a tough call. I don't love the idea of longing alts right now just because they feel like they're getting to the top. In fact, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin dominance. It is starting to pivot and bounce a little bit here. So, you know, generally speaking, when Bitcoin dominance goes sideways, it's very standard for Bitcoin. If Bitcoin were to go up, then alts go up with it, right? So that's why we're seeing a lot of that right now. But if Bitcoin stabilizes, then we'll probably see some stability from altcoins. So I'm willing to speculate we're going to see some sideways price action and maybe a little bit of down if Bitcoin pulls back from altcoins this weekend. Anyways, I'll provide a crypto market update. I do that daily now, just kind of talking about Bitcoin dominance and CME futures. But for the most part here, this is not a bad sign at all for altcoins. It just implies we're seeing a slight shift in momentum here, and we could see some further downside. All right, folks, that's all I got. Thanks so much again for watching. I hope you learned something today. Comment below if you get a chance. Otherwise, you know, thanks again so much for always hitting that like button, and we'll look forward to seeing the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.